Hi there, Paige here from Paige Haynes Kinesiology. Thanks for joining me for our September group healing or kinesiology balance. So this month, if you have seen any of my Facebook sort of posts or my Instagram TV, I've been looking at setting boundaries. And the reason for this focus is, I know for myself personally, but also for my clients and some of my students, that this can be a really challenging thing to do. So we can often fall into this pattern of saying yes to everything, and part of that can be that we really want to be, we've got this urge to be everything in the world and to be and do all of these amazing things. But another side of it can be that we're just not comfortable saying no to people. And this can come from, I don't know, personally from myself, when we step into that role of motherhood. And maybe we've gone from, and this is my own personal experience, gone from being, an independent person into a relationship and then with children. And maybe you're not out there and earning money and those sorts of things. So you feel this obligation to give and give and give. And then it comes to a point where you feel like you've given too much and that cup's empty. And we're not really sure then how to get ourselves back to that even space of where we're putting ourselves first so that our cups are becoming full again and we're feeling like we can give some more. So it's almost like a burnout that happens. So this is why I've been doing a few little talks on this, and this is why I've chosen it to be our balance focus for this month. So the affirmation that I put on, so when we do a kinesiology session, and what I mean by the group energy is anyone on my Facebook group, anyone in my Instagram is included, anyone who I've worked with as a client, and anyone on my mailing list. So everyone's included just automatically. So it's the group energy that I'm tapping into, and what that means is that it's hopefully relevant for everyone. And it's funny how many messages I get post-balance that, oh, wow, I felt like that was just for me, and that's, I guess, the beauty of doing that from a group perspective. So the focus with the affirmation, so we always put an affirmation on when we're doing kinesiology, and it's I now easily recognize the areas in my life that require change and boundaries. I am easily, effectively and lovingly setting healthy boundaries for both myself and my loved ones. I honour the divine light in myself and trust myself to move forward confidently in all areas of my life. Now, the reason I guess I focused on recognizing the areas of change, the change has to come from within us, okay? And that's self-responsibility is a major thing with kinesiology. We're not working on everybody else in your life, we're working on yourself. And everybody else can change, definitely, once we start to change our own view and how we're appearing in the world. And I guess the first step for creating these healthy boundaries is actually recognizing the areas that need help and where you do need to say no. The second part, which is about setting those healthy boundaries, and the reason I included myself as well as loved ones, is sometimes we need to set those boundaries for ourselves. So we need to be able to say no to ourselves and say, no, actually, that's enough. I've got enough on my plate. I don't want to do any more this month. Or maybe it's about saying, yes, I want to take this opportunity for myself and standing in our power to do so. So that was the reason sort of behind what I did there. So the emotion for our balance this month was resentment. Now, this is an interesting one because I know for myself personally, and this may mean something completely different to you, I start to feel resentful of others. If I am not looking after myself and if I'm not setting those boundaries, then what I'm doing is not coming joyfully from my heart. It's coming from a place of it's almost obligation, and resentment does build there. So whether that's with my partner or with my kids or perhaps even with, in my work situation, if I'm not standing in my power and speaking my truth, then I start to become eroded almost, like it's that burnout, that, that sort of sense. So that's what the overall emotion was for the balance. There were a couple of little aspects in there that we were working on, so to do with the oculomotor, and also to do with our respiratory system, which can be linked to our metabolism, but also, anything to do with that respiratory kind of system there. We were working with the large intestine. So the large intestine has a lot of sort of grief, guilt, regret, release, those kind of emotions associated with it. And the issue that showed up was a codependency issue. And this is an interesting one. I go against my values if they differ from someone who is important to me. And I think this is a big one in setting boundaries, because, it's easy to be swayed into someone else's kind of someone else's values, and to not stand in our own values when it comes to setting boundaries. So for instance, how would that appear? So instead of valuing, for myself personally, valuing that time, that I need, I will be sucked back into, the pattern of the family, or, whatever they're doing. So I'll think, I won't value. And it actually even happened this morning for me. So I was doing some yoga, but I could hear my kids awake, and I was like, I've got 10 more minutes. And I went, no, I want to go up and be with my kids before they have to go to school. What would have been better for me in that moment was to stick out that 10 minutes. I probably would have gone up and felt a lot more giving and loving if I'd just taken that extra time. But it was like, okay, I'm valuing that family time, which is important, of course, but over my own self-care there. So, those little things where you go against your own values to fall in alignment with someone else's values, that's important to you. The other thing that came up was in the patterns of codependency, it was, I'm afraid of being ignored. And so that can be a really real issue for us when we're trying to set these boundaries, that we're not going to be listened to, that people aren't going to hear what we're saying, that, things are just going to continue the way they are, so why bother? So we're working on that as well. The body system was the eye, so that's an interesting one. And metaphorically speaking, I think that's about the way we see the world, maybe changing that. But it could also be that you've got things going on with your eyes. And I know my eyes are actually, I've started to notice since turning 40 is that my eyes are starting to feel like there's, a bit of grittiness happening and that sort of thing. So it was relevant for me. Hope it's relevant for you. Okay, so when we got into the balance, there were quite a few corrections. So that's what happens. That was all set up for the balance. And so this time we worked with some interesting things. So a bit of emotional stress release. One of the emotions that came up was being cautious. So I'm not sure what that means to you, but for me, it's about kind of being okay with stepping out of my comfort zone. So sometimes we stay in that cautious kind of realm, safe realm, and don't speak our truth. So maybe this is kind of diffusing a little bit of that and being able to step up and speak our truth. There was another interesting one with, it's called Attitude with Essence, and the attitude that came up was about mental rigidity and being able to release that. So sometimes we get so stuck in our thought processes that we can't step outside of that. And so it was talking about having that flexibility within the way that we see things, and therefore being able to afford that change, and also not having to have control over everything. So I think that can be a big thing for women as we try and, have control over all of these outside things, whereas we could possibly let that go a little bit and then be able to create a different reality for ourselves and our families. Language change. So I think this is also a massive one when we're looking at our own, what's standing in why we're not setting these boundaries, or what's standing in our way of this self-care. And can't came up. So if you're finding yourself saying, I can't do that because of this, shifting that to, I'm choosing not to. And that can be a healthy thing to say in boundaries as well. So if you're trying to communicate these boundaries in a healthy way, it's I'm actually choosing myself. It's not I can't, it's I am choosing not to, or I am choosing to. There was a bit of attention brought to that. So just notice where that can't's coming up, either within yourself or externally as well, that you're saying to other people. So that needed a little bit of attention there too. The two chakras that came up to be worked with was the heart and the solar plexus. So the heart is about giving and receiving love. And the solar plexus is about standing in our personal power. So I actually worked with both of those at the same time to balance them out. So, and that's understandable because we want our heart and our personal power to be aligned together so that we are feeling love towards ourselves and feeling empowered also. And then also, if that is balanced and centered, we can give love to others. Okay, so that was what I took from that. There are a few other little ones in there too, but nothing that needed any more attention. One exercise I would love you to do that's come up a little bit. I've been on a trip to Bali over the last week and I did this amazing process with Ho'oponopono. So I'm going to share the link to a beautiful little song, and I'd love for you to maybe even just look in the mirror and sing that one to yourself, because I feel like there is forgiveness that's needed around this. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But yeah, so that would be wonderful if you can even do that a few times, looking in the mirror and just singing that to yourself. Or if you have a loved one that this is coming up, that this balance is bringing that up, then maybe you can sing it to each other. But that might be a little bit confronting for people. So just see how you go. But I will share the link below this as well so that you'll have that one there. And it's a beautiful little song to sing. It's about, forgiveness and love. And it's beautiful. All right, so thank you very much. That's our September balance all done. I have a couple of workshops coming up if you're in our local area. So I'm in Tamborine, Queensland. I'm running an introductory muscle testing workshop that's coming up on the 15th of September, so it's coming up soon. It's $50 for the afternoon, but I'm showing you how to self-test muscle testing, how to test somebody else, and I'm also sharing a few secrets of kinesiology. So I'd love you to come along to that. You can find that on my events in Paige Haynes' Kinesiology on my Facebook page. Also, I have my new neuro-linguistic kinesiology course starting, and that's in October. That's starting to fill up. So if you are keen, then make sure you get in touch with me if you have any questions. And otherwise, there's a $300 deposit to get you started. It's a 27-week course. It's going to be amazing. I've got some beautiful people booked in already, and I just know this group's going to be special, as all of them are, but super special. And I also have a vision board workshop coming up. So if you're really wanting to, harness this power of setting clear boundaries and stepping into this confident future, perhaps a vision board might help. And the reason I have put it at the 20th of October is before we get into that silly season time and, preparing for next year. So it's a really good time to sit down, take stock of what the year has been so far and what areas you really want to focus on moving forward. So that's also in my events there too. It's going to be an amazing afternoon as well. So thank you so much. Paige here from Paige Haynes Kinesiology. And I'd love to hear any feedback or any changes that you've noticed from these sessions. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye for now.